Okay, hello, good evening out there, and welcome to the ValleyContax and OVITZ webinar on Wavefront-Guided contact lenses and how they can grow your practice. Thank you again for joining us. We know that life is starting to get back to normal and that all of you are getting busy again. So thanks again for joining us tonight. I hope everybody can appreciate my Zoom background, especially all of you with children out there. I spent the entire day trying to figure out what my Zoom background was going to be, and my soon-to-be 5-year-old decided that I could use some help. So hopefully you enjoy, maybe you can recognize a few of these characters. So my role in tonight's webinar is to introduce our panel of presenters. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Josh Adams. I'm the Vice President of ValleyContax and also the Vice President of the CLMA and the Vice President of the GPLI. I think they gave me those titles so I could just remember who I was. So we are, I've been in the contact lens business for 30 years. I started when I was just a young child almost, cutting contact lenses on the manually guided lathe. And so for me, it's amazing. I mentioned that because it's amazing for me to see this technology continue to evolve and to be a part of it. And ValleyContax has been around for almost 40 years. And one of the things that we like to talk about is the reason that we succeed is that we align ourselves with incredibly brilliant people. And tonight is no exception. I get the pleasure of introducing you to some very brilliant people that have worked very hard to develop some of these ideas and then present them to you tonight. So our first presenter is Dr. Geunyoung Yoon. He's a professor of ophthalmology at the FAAO Eye Institute at University of Rochester. I'm lucky that I have his slide up here to back me up. He's a pioneer in the field of wavefront technology. He has an international reputation as a developer of the first commercial aberrometer. He's the chief scientist at OVITZ, among many other accomplishments for Dr. Yoon. Felix Kim is an optical engineer with a degree from the University of Rochester. Not surprisingly, he studied under Dr. Yoon at the University of Rochester, and he founded OVITZ in late 2013 after being fascinated by HOA optics and not seeing a lot of market capitalization in this field. Felix's main job is keeping OVITZ as the leader in HOA technology. Dr. Fred Edmunds is an optometrist in New York. He's the owner of a sports vision practice called XTREMESIGHT Performance. He's spent his career dedicated to visual performance in athletes and improving that thereof. He's previously worked for Bausch & Lomb and is named the Sports Vision Optometrist of the Year. He was involved in the development of the Nike Max Sports Sight line of lenses, which I personally remember coming through, and was an amazing product. He's a fellow of the American Academy of Optometry, a member of the AOA Sports and Performance Vision Committee. He's an international lecturer on sports vision and contact lenses. His passions are extreme sports, not surprisingly, and he is an active motocross racer, I had to add. I'd like to see a video of that someday, Dr. Edmunds, of you launching through the air. Dr. Stephanie Wu is a Arizona Wildcat, and she's from Lake Havasu, Arizona. She was a graduate at SCCO Optometry School and did the cornea and contact lens residency at UMSL, a very, very well-known residency in and of itself. She's won numerous awards and been recognized by the GPLI, fellow in the American Academy of Optometry as well, and she's authored numerous publications, too many to mention here. One thing I want to mention is that she is an active double underlined GPLI advisory board member, and I very much appreciate that on behalf of the GPLI. She's a past president of the Scleral Lens Society, adjunct professor at Midwestern University. She's lectured around the world on contact lenses and anterior segment ocular disease. And there's a spare time lying here, which, believe it or not, I guess maybe there is a little spare time maybe somewhere. An avid wine collector, which I'm very fascinated, and a level 2 sommelier. So very impressive, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about the different levels of sommelier sometime. Maybe that'll be another webinar. She could give us a sommelier webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation tonight over to Dr. Yoon and let him take the floor.
Thanks, Josh, for the introduction. Again, my name is Geunyoung Yoon, a professor at the University of Rochester FAAO Institute. I've been directing the Advanced Physiological Optics Laboratory at the university for the past 20 years. So my presentation today for the next 20 minutes or so will be focusing on wavefront-guided contact lenses. But my lab has many more projects going on closely related to ophthalmology and optometry. So if you're interested in some of those, please visit our lab website here, or simply Google Yoon Lab. The first thing that comes up will be my lab website link. So I have a financial interest with the OVITZ and provide a consulting service for eye care industry. Various research grants have supported our research as well. What is a wavefront? A wavefront is an imaginary surface with a constant phase, and one of the most important properties that describes the nature of light. It represents the direction of the propagating light and is always perpendicular to the direction of the travel at all points in space. So in a perfect optical system, for example, the wavefront can be a plane for the parallel beam as shown in the left, or spherical for the converging or diverging as shown on the right. However, in perfect optical system, wavefront can be distorted as shown with the blue lines here. The deviation from the perfect plane or spherical wavefront is what we call the wavefront aberrations. The human eye is optically imperfect, so we expect to see some wavefront aberrations. One of the simplest aberrations is a defocus or myopic or hyperopic refractive error. For myopic eyes, peripheral part of the wavefront propagates faster than center compared to the perfect spherical wavefront, which forms a focal point in front of the retina. Defocus is one of the lower aberrations, or LOA. The other LOA is astigmatism. Human eyes also have other types of aberrations called higher order aberrations, or HOAs, causing the irregular ray diagram as shown with the blue lines. These aberrations can significantly degrade visual quality, but unfortunately cannot be corrected with the conventional spectacles or contact lenses. So wavefront aberrations are often represented by a color map, as you can see here. Different colors represent the way the wavefront is deviated from the reference wavefront at corresponding locations on the pupil plane. If there's no aberrations, no color variation is seen. So the more the color variation is, the worse the optical quality is. The realized aberration is complicated. So we sometimes like to dissect it into individual aberrations so that we can have a better understanding of optical quality. A mathematical function of a Zernicke polynomial has been used to represent the complicated wavefront. An arbitrary wavefront profile can be expressed by the sum of individual Zernicke terms multiplied by the coefficients called Zernicke coefficients. Each coefficient quantifies the relative contribution of individual aberrations to the entire optical ocular aberrations. So this is a summary of individual Zernicke aberrations. The first three terms represent the spheral cylindrical refractive errors, or lower order aberrations, LOA. The rest of the more complex looking Zernicke aberrations is higher order terms. If you get yourself familiarized with the individual patterns and names, you would be able to guess what aberrations are dominant in the wavefront aberration map of your patient. The human eye consists of 4 optical surfaces, 2 from cornea, 2 from crystal lens. Due to the difference in each surface profile and refractive indices of surrounding media, relative contribution of each surface to the entire ocular aberration is very different. Therefore, for more complete representation of visual quality, it is important to quantify the total aberration, not just the cornea aberration, for instance. How do the cornea and the crystal lens affect the total ocular aberrations? A study quantified the aberrations of the cornea and internal optics as well as the whole eye. One of the interesting findings was that for young, healthy eyes, cornea and internal optics aberrations were compensated each other to a certain degree. This indicates that whole eye aberration is actually smaller than aberrations of the cornea and internal optics. So this is, I think, this is a very clinically very important, because if you were to correct eyes aberration based on the cornea aberrations measured with corneal topographer, for example, visual outcome wouldn't be optimal. The message here is that the optimal visual correction performance can only be achieved by using the whole eye aberrations. So why do we care about the aberrations so much? So one of the main reasons is that the aberration makes it possible to quantify or predict how the quality of an image formed on the retina is altered by the aberrations. For example, point spread function, stray ratio, and modulation transfer function. So, and also the image convolution from the measured aberration can visualize how the image on the retina looks like, as shown here as a blurred visual acuity chart. This capability provides clinicians with the precise insights into visual quality patients experience. So now, how can we measure the eye's aberration objectively? Sharp-Hartman wavefront sensor is the most commonly used tool to measure the aberration objectively. One of the key components in this type of sensor is the lens array, forming an array of focal spots on a CCD camera. Each spot contains a local wavefront information at corresponding location of each lenslet. Wavefront measured in perfect eye creates a regularly spaced spiral pattern, as you saw in the diagram. However, in real eyes, the spot pattern is deviated from the reference point in an irregular fashion, as you can see here. So local wavefront slope is detected from the deviation, and wavefront aberration can be calculated from the local slopes. So higher order aberrations can also characterize corneal pathologies. This presumably very important for clinical practice. It is very common to observe increased positive spherical aberration in eyes that underwent the laser refractive surgery. Keratoconic patients show large coma and secondary astigmatism. Patients with corneal transplant or radial keratotomy tend to have a large trefoil and spherical aberrations. Another important clinical application of the precise aberrometry is early detection of subclinical keratoconus. So this would allow clinicians to apply a treatment option such as a corneal cross-linking to prevent further progression of the disease. You also notice that the high order aberration in these pathologic corneas are considerably larger compared to the normal eyes, suggesting that much larger visual benefit is expected in these highly aberrated eyes if we were able to correct these aberrations reliably. So this slide illustrates potential visual benefit of correcting high order aberrations compared to the best spectral correction of spherocylindrical refractive errors. The visual benefit increases with the pupil size simply because of the larger magnitude of aberration to correct for the larger pupil. Even normal healthy eyes can achieve significant visual performance improvement, especially for larger pupils. The benefit is even more substantial when correcting the high order aberration in patients with keratoconus, even for small pupil sizes under photopic light conditions. How can we correct the high order aberrations with the wavefront-guided optics? The surface of the wavefront-guided optics has to have the opposite profile of the measured wavefront with the magnitude scaled by the refractive index of the lens material. The incoming wavefront becomes flat once the distorted wavefront propagates through the optics. The wavefront-guided optics can be manufactured by a CNC lathe machine that has been used for contact lens manufacturing already. Several methods to correct the high order aberrations in the eye have been proposed, and our lab has tested them over many years. Adaptive optics was the first applied, and is a very, very powerful tool to make the eye optically perfect non-invasively, but it can be done only in the sophisticated research laboratory. The first practical method to correct a higher order aberration is a laser refractive surgery, but we still need to improve our understanding of corneal biomechanics and wound healing to achieve more reliable HOA correction. More recently, our lab proposed the possibility of using corneal cross-linking to control the ocular aberration as well. Ophthalmic lenses, including spectacles and soft and scroll lenses, and even intraocular lenses could be a very practical and safe choice for higher order aberration corrections. Here's a brief summary of the correction performance with the Wavefront-Guided ophthalmic lenses in keratoconus patients done in my lab. We've demonstrated spectacles, and both soft and scroll contact lenses can be customized to correct individual higher order aberrations, resulting in substantial improvement in visual performance as expected. Spectacles are a very good candidate as long as the alignment between the lens and eye's pupil maintains, which is not easy due to the misalignment caused by constant dynamic movement of the eye. Soft contact lens could alleviate this limitation. However, the lens still needs to move after each blink to refresh the tear between the contact lens and cornea. So it is a part of the reason why the correction performance with the soft contact lens is degraded compared to the well-aligned spectacles, as you can see in the middle row. Spectacle scroll lens is an excellent candidate as its movement is much smaller with a good fitting. In collaboration with the Boston site, we have demonstrated that severe keratoconus with the Wavefront-Guided scroll lens can have a better optical quality than typical normal eyes. More recently, Jason Marsek and Ray Applegate at the University of Houston reported similar results. I just talked about the importance of a good alignment between the Wavefront-Guided optics and the eye to achieve the excellent correction performance. I would emphasize this again by these illustrations. If the eye has a spherical aberration, as you can see on the left, but the Wavefront-Guided optics is a significantly decentered, the new aberration, coma in this case, is induced, which in turn makes the visual quality worse than optimal. With the significant decentration of the Wavefront-Guided optics, visual quality could be even worse than with the conventional optics. For exactly the same reason, stable rotational orientation is also very critical. So precise registration of the contact lens center, position, and rotation is one of the most important steps in designing Wavefront-Guided optics. These two videos show how soft and scroll lens move after each blink. We put some markings on the lens surface and trace them to quantify the decentration rotation of the lens in real time. You notice some marked differences in the way soft and scroll lenses move after blink. And scroll lens with the good fitting can be very, very stable. Wavefront-Guided optics can only correct the static aberration, so any temporal changes in aberration pattern could reduce the benefit of higher order aberration correction. First, significant tear instability over the contact lens surface needs to be taken care of before testing vision with the Wavefront-Guided optics. The ocular aberration is increased with age, as shown in this plot, but this occurs over a very long period of time, more than at least 10 years. So this wouldn't affect the contact lens wearer, as they would have to replace their lenses in a couple of years anyway. Corneal scars and cataract within the pupillary area can have a more direct influence on the performance of the Wavefront-Guided optics, as light scatter that cannot be corrected with the Wavefront-Guided optics is another optical factor reducing visual quality, even with the perfect HOA corrections. So now the question then, whether we should still correct these aberrations in those pathologic patients. The answer is a yes. As long as the wavefront aberration can be measured reliably, patients will experience the benefit, although the benefit could be compromised slightly. Until recently, all of the research on aberrometry and wavefront-guided optics was done in research labs. So we used a custom-built aberrometer built on a big optical bench, as you can see picture on the left, and analysis and lens design were done somewhat manually, and lens manufacturers have to develop their own capability to take our advanced optical lens design and transfer that into their lathe machine to cut the irregular surface profile precisely. This entire process takes so much time and resources from the research lab and lens manufacturers. I believe this is the main reason why this technology wasn't commercially available before. Thanks to ValleyContax and OVITZ for their hard work to develop the system that does the entire process in an automated fashion. And more importantly, the system is commercially available and affordable. So you will hear more about the system in a moment. So I'd like to finish my presentation by introducing this very new and interesting concept called the neural adaptation that we believe plays an important role in wavefront-guided vision corrections. So to make the long story short, the message is that our neural system is capable of adjusting the way it processes the image formed on the retina through the adaptation process to optical blur. So this demo allows you to experience what this means. So all you need to do is to fixate at the green circle between these two identical images for several seconds. I will then show you another slide to have you adapt to different image quality of these images. And then we will come back to these identical images to see how your perception changed. Just make sure that you keep fixating at the green circle without blinking. Please get ready, then blink and fixate at the green circle. Keep doing it without blinking or moving your eye for a few more seconds. So now we're going back to the original images. I hope you saw a sharper quality of the left image and a blurrier quality of the right image. So what happened during the adaptation period is that the neural system sharpens the image on the left because it was too blurry. And with the right image, the neural system makes it blurrier because it was too sharp. When you go back to the original normal images with this neural adjustment that has been in place, you experience the sharper quality on the left and blurrier quality on the right. So this neural adjustment we just experienced can happen only within the several seconds and goes away after a couple of blinks. But an intriguing question my lab is trying to answer is what happens if our brain is adapted to our own optical blur induced by the habitual aberrations every day for a very, very long period of time. So we've been investigating this in a group of keratoconus patients and found very, very interesting neural mechanisms that have important implications on short-term and long-term visual outcomes with advanced vision corrections. Stay tuned for further research on this. Thank you very much for your attention. I'd like to invite Felix to talk about the next topic.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Yoon. Hi, my name is Felix Kim. I'm the founder and CEO of OVITZ. Before I start, I want to kind of mention that if you have any questions, you will see a Q&A tab underneath the screen. You can ask, as many questions you want, and we'll try to answer it while panelists are making presentation, and there will be a Q&A session afterwards. So don't hesitate to leave any questions you have. So, all right. Okay, so today I'd like to introduce you to our new OVITZ xwave system. The OVITZ xwave system is an aberrometry system that seamlessly integrates the entire scanning and higher order aberration correction process into a simple, streamlined solution. First of all, I want to thank ValleyContax for hosting such a great webinar and inviting us to present. This isn't meant to be a marketing presentation today. While we are currently in a closed beta program with our partnering beta doctors since March of this year, we were hearing from many new doctors interested in this technology. We learned that there are many common questions, and we thought it would be helpful for many doctors if you can answer them today. So I'll try to give you a very brief and fact-driven, introduction to what we are offering to help you make your business decision. Let's watch a short video about the OVITZ xwave system.
Our eyes suffer from many more optical aberrations than basic spherocylindrical refractive errors. These defects are called higher order aberrations, which can cause serious vision degradation, including starbursts, halos, and double vision, if not properly treated. When measuring these aberrations, it is not enough to simply scan the anterior surface of the cornea. What's needed is measurement of the entire visual system. Welcome to the OVITZ xwave system. The OVITZ xwave system is the first of its kind, designed to seamlessly integrate the entire scanning and correction process in a simple, automated, and streamlined solution. As light passes through the eye, OVITZ xwave detects aberrations induced by every ocular surface and calculates interlayer misalignments. The resulting wavefronts are combined into a quantifiable aberration profile. This profile is then embedded into a lens surface to accurately correct these aberrations and achieve optimal vision. The OVITZ xwave system streamlines the process from initial measurement to final delivery of a custom Wavefront-Guided lens. To learn more, visit us at ovitz.us.
So one of the most frequently asked questions was, hey, I have cornea topographer that gives higher order aberration data. Can you make one higher order aberration lens for me? And the short answer is no, because the higher order aberration data you get from the cornea topographer is, just like Dr. Yoon mentioned, is only the higher order aberration profile of the cornea, not the response of the entire visual system. Then if you go one level deeper, when we design the Wavefront-Guided scleral lens, we need to take the aberrometry measurement over the stabilized lens. That is because when you wear the lens, it just added new optical layers, which are the front and back surfaces of the lens, as well as the fluid between the lens and the cornea. So therefore, the patient's high order aberration profile just changed, and the corneal high order aberration data becomes even less a factor for the purpose of this correction. Then the second most frequently asked question is, okay, what if I have aberrometer in my office? The main difference between aberrometer in the marketplace today and the OVITZ xwave system is that the OVITZ xwave system is specifically designed and built for correction of higher order aberrations, which also brings new business opportunity for many specialty feeders. So what do I mean by it's designed and built for high order aberration correction? In order to design an effective wavefront-guided contact lens for high order aberration correction, you need more information than just aberration data that you get from a typical aberrometer. Those data include, but is not limited to, the exact coordinates affecting the high order aberration profile, including axis information and lens movement and so on. I'm not saying that you won't be able to gather this information on your own, but it may require you to invest in different equipment. Also, you may need to spend extra time to obtain this data and make them compatible on your own. Now with the OVITZ xwave system, with a simple click of a button, you can obtain all the necessary data and information required for creation of accurate and effective wavefront-guided lens. In short, the OVITZ xwave system xwave system makes it so easy and simple for eye care professionals so that you can spend your time on more important activities. Now that you have all the data you need, And then you have to send that data to your lab for manufacturing. This is stuff that Dr. Yoon already mentioned, but your lab probably don't know how to apply this data to incorporate into their manufacturing. This is where the OVITZ xwave system comes in to help streamline another tedious, long, and manual process. After we have seen lenses mistakenly manufactured incorrectly after this long process, and unfortunately, we see people saying that, hey, wavefront correction is not working or not useful, when it was just done incorrectly. It breaks my heart. Now you don't need to worry about the data submission and manufacturing process. With the OVITZ xwave system, all you do is to click a lens order submit button on the device upon completion of the measurement. The rest is taken care of by OVITZ. OVITZ's partnership with lab ValleyContax in this case can simply receive the data and manufacture a lens without interrupting their workflow. No data is lost, and you will get the Wavefront-Guided lens in timely manner. Your lab, ValleyContax, just saves so much time, meaning that you don't need to pay for the unnecessary extra time and overhead that could have gone into it. In summary, the OVITZ xwave system is the first of its kind to integrate and streamline the entire process. Thus, eye care professionals like you now can offer higher order aberration correction services to your patients. We'll not get into the pricing today, but our pricing model is also designed for specialty fitters. You will find our pricing plans quite new and unique. It's possible because we are betting on our customer success. Before I wrap up, I want to quickly show you the additional information you can get from OVITZ xwave aberrometer. Upon completion of the measurement, you will see, you will be taken to this result screen. As you can see here, you're able to see this wavefront map showing higher order aberrations of the entire visual system besides the auto refraction data on the left. Where you can see the value of for each high order aberration. And you can also compare results by looking at this bar chart. Also shown are the point spread function and MTF graph that helps you understand the level of contrast and sharpness of the patient's vision. We also show this simulated image based on the aberration profile of the patient. This represents the letter on the 20/20 line on the Snellen chart. And you can also, by clicking this button, you can also simulate the perfect spherical cylindrical correction. This way you can understand the sole effect of the high order aberration more accurately and precisely. With this, you can see why your patient may not be happy even if they can see 20/20 line. Now you have a clear understanding what's happening and what's causing it. This example E image was simulated based on a real advanced keratoconus patient's aberration data. As you can see, even with the best spherical cylindrical correction, the vision is quite bad due to the high order aberrations. And you can tell this person may need high order aberration correction. Lastly, you can see all of this visual performance data at different pupil diameter. So this OVITZ xwave system can also be a tool for you to understand optical performance of your patient's vision in greater detail. So I hope it was helpful, and that's it for my presentation today. If you have any questions, please leave any question underneath at the Q&A the windows, or don't hesitate to contact me. This is my email address, so looking forward to it. Thanks. And I'll introduce Dr. Fred Edmunds, and now your turn.
All right, thank you, Felix. First of all, I'd like to say, Josh, I have some videos of the motocross. They're not all pretty, okay? In fact, they get a little muddy. Does everybody see my screen okay there?
Yeah, I can see it.
I'm trying to get full screen, but sometimes, there you go, okay. So I've been involved in contact lenses an awful long time, and had a career with Bausch & Lomb. When I left that, I established a sports vision only clinic, and have been working pretty diligently to figure out what the heck that is and how to make money off it. So not quite so easy, and not quite as slam dunk as I thought, but throughout the whole time, I've been very passionate about contact lenses. And I look at contact lenses as the low-hanging fruit, the real easy way to enhance somebody's visual performance, particularly if you can fit them pretty well. One of the things that has always been missing, though, is how to correct somebody's visual performance in terms of visual acuity, contrast, sensitivity, primarily dynamic visual acuity, in somebody that has some pretty funky corneas, and so myself included. And so when I learned about this technology, I became very interested and became involved. And so it's so exciting to see where this is going. So not only do we have the ability to take these diseased and these irregular corneas and make them whole and give them visual performance that is at par or normal or near normal or significantly better than what they've had, we also have the ability to provide supervision, give these normals, people that have had 20/20 vision, 20/15 vision, what have you, we have the ability to clean up their little bits and pieces of aberration and give them even better visual performance, again, specifically visual acuity, contrast sensitivity, and address people that have some dry eye issues, which obviously can impact performance. So that's kind of where I come in from here. I also have some medical contact lens fits that I've done, but what I'd like to present and talk a little bit about today is kind of a incremental application that I think maybe a lot of you out there may not even be thinking about, and that is taking somebody from normal to supernormal. And so that's the kind of the angle that I'm coming from. And so one of the subjects that I'd like to talk about is a fellow that I've been racing mountain bikes and motocross with for an awful long time. And so my early days at Bausch & Lomb, even he was one of my external patients. And so I've been working with this gentleman for a long time. You can take a look at his prescription. He's got a lot of cylinder in both eyes, and really tried to address that with GP lenses. He had issues with dust and dirt and mud, as you might know, because these were just corneal lenses. Get a little speck of dirt underneath them, you're done. And so moved him over to toric contact lenses, including some custom contact lenses, lots of great options out there. But for whatever reason, we just couldn't get a stable lens on him. It might rotate with that cylinder, you can see. It might rotate 2, 3, 5 degrees. And, if you're cascading through the woods in and out of shadow at speed, it can get pretty exciting really fast. And so, marginal success there. And that's where, when this opportunity came up, I immediately thought of this gentleman. And so if we look at his aberrations versus, so first of all, a scleral lens was also in the running. We could possibly have fitted him with a scleral lens. At the time, I didn't have a lot of experience with scleral, so I was more with just regular corneal and toric, custom torics. But we stepped in, tried a scleral on him, and then we moved to the higher order aberration correcting scleral as well. And as you can see from this chart here, we were able to significantly reduce a number of his key Zernike's, coma, spherical aberration, some trefoil, and the fruits of those labors were to produce an awful lot better visual acuity and contrast sensitivity and dynamic visual acuity, which I'll talk about in a bit. One of the things that I really enjoy about looking at these, I really like the higher order aberration maps, the wavefront maps. You get to the point where you can look at these and you can tell automatically, yeah, there's a lot of coma here, there's a lot of trefoil, there's a ton of spherical aberration. You already begin to think, how can I neutralize this? And now that we have a tool that we can actually neutralize a number of these higher order aberrations, it's really, really pretty exciting. And so wrapping up here, if you take a look at this, this gentleman, I was able to, with his spectacles anyway, get him to 20/16 with both eyes. And, contrast sensitivity, if we look at those measures, you know, this was on, I used the CSV 1000. So those familiar with that, this is kind of how that, you look at different spatial frequencies. And then dynamic visual acuity, I have an own proprietary way that I measure it. I take a spinning disc, spin it like crazy. And counterclockwise, that's a number of lines they can read, getting progressively smaller, and then counterclockwise. I like dynamic visual acuity the way that I evaluate it, because it challenges not only just, you know, visual acuity, the contrast sensitivity. They have to have really good pursuit eye movements and really excellent visual concentration. So it's kind of a tertiary measure. When I put the baseline lens on here, baseline scleral, we improved the vision just a hair, not really that significant. We took them from 2016 OU to 2012 and a half. We still had a little residual RMS, which is the overall measure of higher order aberration. Not that much, did pretty well. We improved the contrast sensitivity a little bit, as well as the dynamic visual acuity. But then when we put a Wavefront-Guided lens on, this guy, I mean, subjectively, we put these lenses on him, and he lit up. So from you know, while you see the quantitative differences here, subjectively, he just, you know, expressed that he had never seen this well before, and just couldn't wait to get back out on the bike in and out of shadows and his challenging situation here. So as you can see, we got him all the way down to 2010. So that's, you know, two and a half lines better than where he was with best correction. And he's not a, again, this is may not be the first patient that you might think of for a Wavefront-Guided scleral lens, but this is going to open up the possibilities and the opportunities for a number of my clients and regular normal corneas. So that's where I'm really excited about this. To not even just to touch on how it's going to impact the lives and quality of life of so many of these people who require these medical-oriented contact lenses. So that's my bit, and I'm on the docket next. I have a young practitioner down at the practice right next to me who's going to be fitting me next, and I can't wait. Thank you. And so I'm going to turn it over back to you, Felix, or over to Dr. Wu.
Thanks, Dr. Edmunds, and thank you so much for OVITZ and ValleyContax for inviting me to talk about this incredible technology. So my experience, or kind of my journey into higher order aberration technology, it started actually with my Pentacam, and some of the labs that I was working with, we were trying to correct for some of the higher order aberrations based off of the data that the Pentacam gave us, and kind of with minimal and kind of mixed results. And now that I've seen Dr. Yoon's presentation, it makes a lot more sense why I was kind of getting mixed results. It really kind of is eye-opening, seeing the fact that you really need a system that goes into the entire eye and is accounting for all of the different aspects of the entire eyeball and visual system. So then I got real interested, because now I have a practice that is purely specialty contact lenses. So I am only taking care of patients that need these types of contacts. So to be considered one of the gold standard technologies and having a practice that is offering patients a next level of care, it's only natural that a aberrometer would be included in my practice. So if we think about some of the advancements that's happened in scleral lenses, it's really come a long way. So we started with more spherical peripheral curves, and now that we have so much data on scleral topography, we're realizing that, oh my gosh, we need to add toric peripheral curves. And in some of these systems, we're able to map them to an even higher level so that it's even more custom fit. So I think that was kind of the next thing. But now we're to the point where the lenses are being fit really well, and they're very comfortable, and the fitting sets have even improved. And so now we're getting into, I think, a new era of taking your specialty lens clinic to the next level. And I really think that has to do with higher order aberration technology. We have figured out how to put front torics on the scleral lens surfaces, and we've figured out a way to make them very stable. And we've got some good multifocal designs out there. Of course, always room for improvement with any multifocal design. But now I really do think that the next thing in specialty lenses is going to be HOAs. And something that is really important to me as a practitioner is a few different things. So first of all, it has to be cost effective. And like Felix mentioned, the unit itself, it's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg and your firstborn child, which was very, very important to me. And the lens cost also, because sometimes that can be a deterrent for patients. They want this extra technology or they need the extra technology, but there's simply no way that they're going to be able to afford the cost of a Lamborghini. So that's also really important to me. And I think OVITZ and ValleyContax does an incredible job on that. Secondly, it has to be easy to use. Some of the comments that I've gotten from some of my technicians on other pieces of equipment are how difficult they are to use, how long it takes for them to get accurate measurements, and how uncomfortable it is for the patient. OVITZ, not that way at all. Very simple to use. If you can use an autorefractor, you can use OVITZ. It's that simple. So for me, that was key. It had to be easy to use, which it is. Really fast, easy to use, easy to get the information to the lab. It also has to be reproducible. And so we can't have a patient that gets an HOA lens and then they break it, and then a month later they get another one and it's not exactly the same. And I think we all know with ValleyContax has a very good reputation of being an excellent lab, and their reproducibility is very good. So those are some things that I really count on. And then of course, the very last thing is results. If it doesn't perform well, then there's no point in any of this. It could be the easiest thing to use and it could be super cheap, but if it doesn't produce results and get patients that great vision that they're expecting, then it's kind of worthless. But I can honestly say with my experience with the HOA, with OVITZ, it's been incredible. And like Dr. Edmunds' case, that just really goes to show you that not only does this have applications for irregular corneas, which is the majority of my patients, but with Dr. Edmunds' patients, those patients usually have pretty good vision, but they are looking to get to that next level. And OVITZ definitely does an incredible job with that. So in summary, I really do think that higher order aberrations, this is the next level. This is the next thing that's going to be on everybody's radar of how can I improve the vision in my patients even more. And if you are a specialty lens fitter of any kind, I definitely think this is something that's going to become necessary if you want to maintain those types of standards in your clinic. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Josh or whoever is answering questions. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Wu, for that. We are all so excited about this technology and really happy to be a part. Felix is going to be putting out a poll, and I hope that everybody can take a moment to answer that as it's coming forward here on the screen. And there's also a couple of questions that have come up. I know that a few have been answered. If we could have some potentially maybe a couple of our ODs that feel comfortable answering this and jumping on there. There's a few there that could be answered by someone much smarter than myself. Sorry?
Hi, Josh. I think I just realized that I was on mute.
No problem.
I was actually answering the questions.
Okay, great.
No one heard me.
Well, you got to do it again then. All right. Thanks, GY. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'd like to start with the first question asked by Dr. Soto. What is a significant amount of aberration that would indicate the wavefront-guided contact lenses? So unfortunately, there is no definitive answer for this, but based on my experience, if you could make the optics of the eye perfect, then any aberration correction would give you the benefit. So you could, make the eye perfect with the, for example, adaptive optics, but that's a laboratory system. But there are some practical limitations with the, wavefront-guided contact lenses, for example, because of the movement and registration and all those things. But we have seen an improvement of visual acuity going from better than 2020 to close to 2010 with the wavefront-guided contact lenses. So it all depends on how well you can design and how well you can fit these lenses. So unfortunately, I can't really give you the single number that could be used to determine whether your patient needs a wavefront-guided optics or not. Hopefully that answers your question, Dr. Soto. There's a, hi, Ken. Ken is my colleague here. He asked a question. So let me see Ken's questions. Are you using certain nomogram to account for the interaction between the lower and higher order aberrations? For this, I know I have worked with Dr. Scott McRae for refractive surgery to take the interaction account into the subjective refraction. But for this, we actually use a retinal image quality metric, which takes all the aberration information into account to come up with the best refractive error corrections. So this is the beauty of this OVITZ system that has that optical analysis capability that could do this job. So we actually plan to implement this function into the software so that every clinician could enjoy that function. Even if they don't fit the wavefront-guided optics, they could still use this aberrometer to objectively come up with the best refractive corrections. Ken, does that answer your question, hopefully? And so second question, another question from Ken, how often do you find there's a need for an over-refraction after the first lens fit? Oh, I think someone else will have to answer this question.
I'll jump in there, GUI. So initially when we first started using these, we'd over-refract, and there was a minor over-refraction. I think it averaged around a half a diopter of plus, but lately we've been tightening that up quite a bit. So I believe the program is such that that ValleyContax works with you until you get a lens that's spot on. And so and I'm not sure if the process was covered fully in the show, but essentially what you do is you send you fit the scleral lens, you get the proper fitting lens, you tell ValleyContax what it is that you need, what that carrier lens is going to look like, all the parameters, okay, right down to quadrant specific. You receive a template lens which has all these dots on it. That's the lens that gets placed on the eye. You do a spherical over refraction over that lens, and you do the xwave measurement. That goes back to ValleyContax, and usually it's spot on. If not, it might be within, again, our experience is about a half a diopter plus pretty consistently, and I think we've shifted the nomogram to address that. But in any case, that ValleyContax is in this until you get the lens that is most appropriate. Hope that answers your question. Okay.
All right, so I'll try to answer the next question asked by Dr. McBride. Does the OVITZ unit count for scleral lens decentration or the scleral lens decentration addressed by the decentering the optical zone within the scleral lens? I think so maybe Josh could answer this question better than me. But I think we decenter the so we actually have another definition of the optical zone within which we put the HOA correction in. So that optical, I would say sub-optical zone or HOA correction optical zone, that optical zone can be moved around the original traditional optical zone of the scroll lens. So, so we actually, decenter the pattern of the HOA correction within the optical zone.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Ji-Wei. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. Yes. All right. So next question again from Ken. Ken, you should talk to me directly. Have you noticed the reduction in vision over time due to the neuroadaptive effect? It's actually the other way around. So this neuroadaptation effect affects the visual performance or benefit right after you correct the HOA. Okay, because their neural system has been adapted to their habitual aberrations to improve their visual perception. But once you get rid of those aberrations, that neural adaptation now plays an adverse effect to a certain extent. So they actually see a little worse than optical theory predicts. So then the good news is, based on, according to our study in the lab, they actually tend to improve their visual performance over time, even if the optics of the eye with the custom wavefront-guided optics doesn't really change. Their visual performance improves, which indicates that their neural system start to readapt it to the improved optics so that they could actually appreciate the sharpness of the image quality that is provided by the custom wavefront-guided optics. So over time, it actually improves rather than just decrease their performance with the wavefront-guided optics. Okay, next question from Dr. Brill. How well does a wavefront-guided contact lens work with the RK patients whose vision varies every few minutes? Oh, I think one of our panelists has fit the lens or experience with RK patients.
Yeah. So that's a good question. So one of my clients had RK way back in the early 80s. Okay, and she's been suffering with subpar vision over the course of the last 15 years, so bad that she doesn't drive at night, and she only uses over-the-counter readers to help her out up close. But she kind of just, a typical RK, kind of just deals with it, and so we fitted her up with this, and it's the over refraction is quite soft, but again, and from a perspective of visual acuity, we take her from about, I'm just off the top of my head, I think we've got her uncorrected with anything. She's had about a 20/60, 20/50 plus. With these lenses, she's ended up with about a 20/25 minus OU, but it's kind of soft. It's when you're doing a refraction, they're like, I can kind of see it, you kind of can't see it. The challenge that she has is that some of these some of those incisions actually entered into the pupil, so she's got some significant glare, etc. Now, all that said, she loves the quality of the vision. She's driving it at night again. And so it has helped her considerably.
So one thing to add that answer, this RK patient, they have a very large magnitude of trefoil, as I mentioned in my presentation. So trefoil, the kind of typical amount of trefoil you see in the normal eyes, they don't really affect the vision that much. But the trefoil you see from RK patients or PK patients, they're just more than 10 times larger magnitude in that aberrations. So by correcting that large magnitude, you actually expect to see large benefit. Okay, next question is, so what kind of measurements are needed besides HOA measurements? So you have to finish all, whatever you need to do to get the best fitting of the conventional scroll lens. Whatever tool you need to use for that, you have to do it. And then once you finish the fitting, then that's where this aberrometer comes in, so that we could quantify the higher order aberrations of the eye with the best fitted scroll lens, baseline lens. So we additionally add this HOA optics to that lens, it's exactly the same parameters, so that we can maintain the good fitting performance with the HOA correction optics. Next question from Chi, Dr. Chi. How do you control pupil and wavefront error center with the OVITZ? And on the scroll lens, do you dilate the pupil? Yeah, so for the laboratory system, we always dilate pupil because we like to collect the aberration information for maximum pupil size. So once you get the maximum pupil size, if the pupil size gets smaller, natural pupil size are always changing, right, under different light conditions. But if you correct the entire eye for the maximum pupil size, you're guaranteed that aberration correction is still working really well for smaller pupil size. For that reason, we always try to make the aberration measurement for largest pupil size. Whether we need a dilation or not, I think it depends on the age as well, because when you measure the aberrations of the young, very young patients, they have very, very strong accommodation, and sometimes, accommodation affects the aberration measurement slightly. So I prefer to dilate the pupil, but for practical reasons, some clinicians don't want to do it. Then you have to make your exam room very dark so that you can actually have a naturally dilated maximum pupil size.
So, G, well, I'll help you out a little bit here.
Sure.
So far, I don't think, Felix, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I've dilated a pupil in all the clients that I've had to date. I just shut down the lights, so let them, bake a little bit on that, open up a little bit on that, and usually that does it. Now that said, I haven't had, the patients that I've done this on, I haven't had anybody that's old like me with myotic pupils. So those I might have to dilate. But so far I've been able to get, pupils open up about, 5.5, 6 or so, and it hasn't been an issue. And we've gotten pretty good results. So.
Next question by Dr. Fosso. Can the HOA be incorporated with the multifocal optics? Short answer is yes. I'm very interested in having multifocal optics on scroll lens for myself. So we're working on it. And next question, can you make the scroll MF? That's I believe it's a multifocal and reverse the geometry design essentially. Yeah. So any optical design can be implemented. Of course, there's a limitation of the lathe machine in terms of precision and the geometry, but typical smooth smoothly varying optical profile. I don't see there's any problems. So yeah, it's possible. Okay, next question, Josh. I think you should answer these questions. Are there special lenses for fitting or with my Valley CS Elite site?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. And right now, this beta test is being used with the Valley CS Elite set. The oblate and prolate combination of the Valley CS set has been the platform for testing. So, that's where we are right now. The back surface, as we're getting to, some of these questions about back surface, whether there's reverse geometry. Yes, absolutely. The back surface is relatively independent to the front surface on this project. You get a good back surface fit, as Dr. Yoon mentioned, you get that good back surface fit, whether it's topographer or whether it's a scleral mapper or whatever it takes you there, or a fitting set. And then once you get that good fit, then is where that drilled lens matrix is made, and then the aberrometer is done on the top of that. So absolutely, the Valley CS Elite in the oblate and prolate set is what's being used right now.
All right, next question by Dr. Tan. Post-lens tear film with the scroll lens is very dynamic. It can take hours for scroll lens to settle. How does this long lens settling affect WFAA, wavefront aberrations? How does the OVITZ and wavefront-guided optics handle this dynamic range? As I briefly mentioned in my presentation, this wavefront-guided optics can only correct the static aberration. Anything that changes over time, for example, relatively short period of time, wavefront-guided optics can't handle it. So, so we have to make sure the fitting is really final. You cannot rush in before the all these lens parameters are determined at the optimal level. Then you may have to revise the wavefront-guided optics later. So we have to make sure the lens fitting process is complete before we attempt the wavefront-guided correction. Can you add some more, Fred or Stefan?
Yeah, so again, probably of a lot of you out there, I might be one of the scleral fitting newbies in the group. I only started fitting sclerals about a year ago, but maybe I've gotten lucky, but I let these settle for about 15 minutes before I even take a first peek at it. And usually about at around a half an hour, I take another look at it, see where my clearance, et cetera, look at all the different quadrants and adjust that I have to. And I'll go back to what you said, GY, earlier. You really have to have a well-fitting scleral lens before you even jump in and do an X-wave on this. Otherwise, you're just wasting, ValleyContax time and your time, and and not just, obviously you want rotationally stable. That lens has to be, on. And the nice thing about it is one of the tools that ValleyContax will give you is the lens that has the dot matrix pattern on it. That makes it really easy. And then the software program, the OVITZ software program that marries it to the manufacturer with ValleyContax lenses, does a lot of the hard work for you. So it'll capture that, it'll recognize the markings on the index markings on the lenses, and then calculate the stability and calculates what it needs to do, where it needs to put the optics, where it needs to center them, et cetera. That's kind of my layperson's understanding of all that. But yeah, you have to have a well-fitting scleral lens before you can jump in and do this.
And depending on what study you read, there's a lot of studies on scleral lens fitting and settling that are out there. And a lot of the studies show that around 80% of settling occurs within the first 20 or 30 minutes. And I would say in my own practice, that's probably very accurate. I've been fitting lots and lots of sclerals over the last 10 years, and the amount of settling that I see in the first 30 minutes compared to at the end of the day, there's not a gigantic change. And the patients, that have the OVITZ have not complained that their vision has changed throughout the day, which would be an indication that something's going on with the optics. But personally, I haven't had that complaint.
There might be some other biomechanical markers that could impact as well that we just haven't identified yet.
Okay, I think next question is for me by Dr. Chang. Since the total HOA changes depending pupil size, and you are proposing to incorporate the HOA from the maximum pupil size, do you somehow incorporate the different amount of HOA corrections as you travel outward from the center of the HOA OZ to ensure best visual quality throughout the entire day? So if I interpret this question right, I think you're asking about how we handle HOAs for different pupil sizes. So if that's true, then my answer would be that whatever pupil size that you have during the day, as long as that pupil size is actually smaller than pupil size that was used to design the wavefront-guided optics, you're all set. You're ready to go. I could, if you have some more detailed information about this, you could probably contact me and I can give you some more explanations about this. Next question is HOA in myopic control lenses by Dr. McDonald. My lab has a separate project on this topic, so please contact me to have some more information about this. But short answer is yes, you could put the myopia control optical design on this scroll lens. You can actually put the HOA, high order aberrations, that if you could design the high order aberrations that helps the myopia control, then you could do it. So any optics could be generated on this scroll lens.
Off label.
Oh yeah, off label. You could say, multifocal. Like,
it's a multifocal, right? It's
lens.
a multifocal. It's not
Yeah.
myopia control. Anyway.
Hey, Josh, you don't want to have a FDA approval for this?
I had to add off label on that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. With my I think by Dr. Kim. With my limited experience with the aberrometer, I had some issues detecting accurate aberrations with the dry eye patients. Do you have this issue with the OVITZ system? Okay, every aberrometer should have a problem with the dry eye if you don't take care of the tear film, as I mentioned in my presentation. So tear film induces a dynamic aberration change. So if you don't take care of that, then your aberration measurement is less reliable. Therefore, your wavefront optics wouldn't be optimal. So be cautious about doing this wavefront-guided optics on severe dry eye patients. Maybe it's not a huge problem if you use a scroll lens, right? Because there's a tear lens in between the lens and ocular surface. But still, you still need to worry about the wettability of the scroll lens of these patients. Make sure that the lens surface is nice and smooth.
I'll add something onto that, GY. Just the other day, I had a client in, and the surface of we were doing an X-wave measurement on her, and just having real troubles. So I took a look with the slit lamp, and of course, the front surface is, spots are dry, and it just looked like crap. So I basically just put a little bit of multi-purpose solution in there, let her blink her eye a little bit, do like an in-eye cleaning, and it cleared up enough to capture a better X-wave capture. You could have gone through the process of having her remove the lens, scrub the heck out of it, rinse it, throw it back in. I think so. I will say, you really want the surfaces of those scleral lenses to look nice too. So make sure you clean them up once you get them. Clean them again once you get them from the lab. Give them the proper wettability when you're working with these.
All right, so next one by Dr. Murphy. I got LASIK eye surgery 10 months ago. I've noticed I have an increase in glare and halos, especially when I play tennis under light. Would I benefit from OVITZ wavefront lenses? I would say yes, but before I give you the definite yes, I think we need to diagnose your optics of the eye first and make sure we could actually correct the aberrations. So, it could be due to the, again, dry eye, in which case it's going to be hard to correct with the wavefront-guided optics. But sounds like you have a glare and halo. Usually those things are occurred by the aberrations. So, so we might be able to correct those problems with the OVITZ wavefront lenses. Okay, Dr. Chang said yes. Does that mean my answer was satisfied? Okay. All right, Dr. Garbus, do we neutralize the lens parameters the same with this lens as we would any scroll lens coming from the lab? Okay, this is for Josh.
Yeah, short answer is no. Unless you've got a aberrometer lensometer or something like that, we use a NEMO which is a manufacturing device that I don't know that there's any optometrist that has. A few educational facilities might have them, but they are a device that measures higher order aberration, and that's how we quality control these and have worked with this project. If we didn't have this NEMO, so here's my ad for NEMO. You European folks, NEMO is a Netherlands, Denmark, something like that. Anyway, you can't put it in your lensometer and read it like a normal, -2 powered lens. So, I would say right now, there's just some trust in the lab that it's quality controlled. We supply and can supply a kind of documented NEMO readout stating we measured this, but very much, base curve, things like that, diameter, center thickness, all of those standard neutralizations can be the same, but in the lensometer, it will not look the same as a low order aberration.
Josh, can you answer next questions as well?
Sure. Do coatings like hydrogen obstacles with, no, I would absolutely recommend HydroPeg. I mean, for every lens, really. Valley is a very pro HydroPeg lab. And I don't think that it creates any obstacles with the accuracy of the measurements. We do not HydroPeg, and that's kind of one thing that I kind of wish we did. Dr. Edmunds' story about the lens where he couldn't quite get a great measurement on because it wasn't wetting well, probably partially was because all those dot matrix lenses, I'm 99% sure are not HydroPegged in the trial form. And I'd like to actually HydroPeg those to make sure that you never have problems with wettability over those, those dot matrix lenses. But absolutely on the final lens, Dr. Miller, I would recommend HydroPeg for sure, just like we do on any, lens, and especially a premier lens like this is. Have you guys tried any HydroPeg? Just you guys working on these, the 11 dot lens matrix lenses? Those are not HydroPegged, if I'm correct, right? Dr. Edmunds, are you receiving these? I don't think that they are.
I don't think so. It's really just a matter. That's partly on us.
Yeah.
You take the lens out of your case when we get it from you guys. We should scrub that. Scrub it, condition it, precondition it, so we have it ready to rock when they show up at the clinic.
Yeah.
And,
yeah. Unless it's HydroPegged, Right. But if it's not HydroPegged, then yes, absolutely. Clean, preconditioned, get ready to go. With HydroPeg lenses, of course, to be clear, we don't recommend any of that stuff. We want to make sure that goes from solution to eye, more or less. But so yes, Dr. Miller, HydroPegging on these HOA lenses is very much recommended and provides, of course, as we know, a great wetting experience. I think that might be the end of our questions for now, and I think we're a little bit past our time. Does any of our panelists want to add any remarks before I close this session down? Doesn't sound like it. So I want to thank all of the attendees tonight to join us. I know that it's getting late on the East Coast. I'm watching the number start to fall off, and it's probably because even us West Coasters are starting to get tired. So you guys, thank you especially to you folks on the East Coast for joining us so late. Thank you to the OVITZ team. You guys have spent your careers developing this technology, and from myself as just a grinded out contact lens guy, I can't just tell you enough how much I appreciate this, and thank you to our doctors and ODs who are doing this beta study. Sometimes it's tireless work. I want to thank my team, anybody at my team at Valley that's listening. I love you guys, and I thank you to the Valley people, as it's been mentioned, who have been working very hard to make this product a reality. I just want to say the last thing is I'm so proud to be in this industry and the advancement of eye care. I mean, when you have these brilliant people that, again, spend their careers developing this technology, and then you add that in with the clinicians that are just the, frontline workers that are applying these lenses and researching and testing, and then you allow a company like ValleyContax to get involved. I mean, all that really ends up happening is improved patient care. And I think that's just what all of our goals are as clinicians and manufacturers and designers and researchers. We all just want that better experience for the patients. And so I just want to thank everybody involved on this and make sure that everyone knows how honored Valley is to be a part of this advancement of the industry. It's very important to us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sign this off. Thanks again, Felix and the gang. And I hope everybody can enjoy the rest of their week and evening, and stay safe, make wise choices, and let's all just keep progressing forward. So thank you again. You can reach out to anyone here with any further questions that maybe didn't get answered tonight. If you wake up in the middle of the night with a burning question, we're here for you at any time to answer that, okay? So thank you so much, and enjoy yourself, everyone.